It is the 5th of November 2024. Hello, good evening and welcome to Starr today here on Starr 103.5 FM. And coming up this evening,
confusion rocks late Ekuadonko's Ghana Freedom Party as two letters from the National Secretary and National Organizer convey conflicting party stands to the Electoral Commission as newly elected flag bearer Philip Apiakubi files to contest upcoming December polls. Tonight on Starr Today, we hear from the two groups scrambling for control of the late Ekuadonko's position.
Well, also in the bulletin this evening, think tank Imani Center for Policy and Education shreds into pieces manifestos of major political parties in the country, describing them as unquantifiable and impractical.
So we see a lot more vague promises in their political party manifestos. You can't quantify them, or you can't really see the specific service that they ought to offer.
Parliamentary recall in limbo following suits by Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, against Speaker's notice summoning House on November 7.
We'll also take you live to the United States, but later we ask the critical question: with 32 days to the December polls, who wins your votes?
For me, I go for John Dramani Mahama because I saw what he did in 4 years. So when I compare that one to these 8 years, I see that it's far better than the 8 years.
I'll be voting for John Dramani Mahama for the NDC, and then for the parliamentary candidate, I'll vote for Eslousu.
We'll also take you live to the United States of America, where millions of voters are casting their ballots. We have the details of these and many other stories in this broadcast. Do stay.
Starr News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takoradi, Cool 103.5 FM in Ho, Rage and Might FM in Tamale, Somali FM in Wa, My Star Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM.
Grateful for your company this evening and welcome aboard Ghana's most comprehensive news analysis program, Starr Today, here on Starr 103.5 FM. And tonight, as always, we're streaming live on Facebook. So do join us with your thoughts, your comments, your views and contributions to the stories that we will be tackling this evening. And make sure that you send all of that and add your location so that we can let the rest of the world also know where you are listening to us from. I am Joshua Kojo Mensah. And tonight I'm here with
Tutuwaa Danso. Now we begin this bulletin on the political front because confusion appears to have rocked the late Ekuadonko's Ghana Freedom Party less than a fortnight after her unfortunate demise. Now, even before family members, friends and sympathizers will come to terms with her death, there is a scramble for control of the party. She left behind two letters emanating from the National Secretary and National Organizer of the party are both conveying a conflicting party stance to the Electoral Commission. This is coming despite the newly elected flag bearer Philip Apiakubi successfully filing his nomination forms to contest the upcoming December elections on the ticket of the GFP.
Right, so let's take you through those two statements that all were received by the Electoral Commission today, apparently. And the first one here is the nomination of a new candidate for the Ghana Freedom Party. Now, it's quite interesting because when you look at this particular one, it was signed on the 4th of November 2024 by the party and received by the Electoral Commission on the 5th of November 2024, which is today. And that's where you can see the stamp of the EC GFP on this particular one, and it's signed by General Secretary of the Ghana Freedom Party, George Affle. Now, let me read to you what it says. Now, this one says, I bring you greetings from the Ghana Freedom Party and trust this letter finds you well. I make reference to your letter with reference number, it's stated there, in which you requested the GFP to nominate a new presidential candidate for the 2024 elections within 10 days to replace the late Ikuadonko, pursuant to Article 44 of the 1992 Constitution. I hereby write to inform the Commission that the party has duly nominated Mr. Philip Apia Kubi to replace our late presidential candidate for the 2024 elections. His name is hereby submitted to the Commission in line with your request. In the letter under reference, the nomination of our new presidential candidate will be filed by the party within the stipulated time frame in accordance with law. Thank you. And that's how it ends. Signed by the General Secretary of the Ghana Freedom Party, George Affle. Now, we saw this letter. And then we saw videos of the man in question, Philip Apia Kubi,
filing his nomination to
at
contest.
the Electoral Commission. At the Electoral Commission. Deputy Director of Electoral Services, Samuel Tete, received this particular
on behalf
nomination
of the Commission.
on behalf of the Commission. Then when we thought that, well, okay, finally we have a replacement.
Exactly. Have been sorted. We are seeing that just a day after this filing of the nomination, another letter has emanated from the GFP, and this is dated November 5, 2024. It says that notice of withdrawal from the 2024 December 7 elections. This is signed by Richard Butchie, the national organizer of the GFP. Let me just read to you exactly what is contained in the letter. And it says that the National Executive Committee of the Ghana Freedom Party, in consultation with the family of our late flag bearer, Madame Ikuadonko, has decided to withdraw from the impending December parliamentary and presidential elections. This decision, irrespective of how difficult it may be, has been reached to posthumously honor the commitments and sacrifices by our late founder and presidential candidate as the only person to send her candidature to the grave. We are, by this letter, formally informing the Commission of our intention not to participate in the election. Any inconveniences this decision may have caused the Commission and its calendar for the December 7 elections is deeply regretted. We will be ready to participate in any future elections organized by the Electoral Commission. Count on your usual cooperation. And as I said, this is signed by Richard Butchie, the national organizer of the GFP. And what I find interesting, Kujo, is with the fact that the executives of the party say that they reached this decision in consultation with the family.
Yes.
Since when did this start?
And they want to honor Ikuadonko so that she would be the only presidential candidate who goes to the grave with a candidate.
Was that her last wish?
You and I were not there. But it's interesting because once we saw this letter, we also got word that this is not from the party. And it's interesting. And I'm sure that in a matter of minutes, we'll put both letters on the screens for you to see on Facebook. Because the first letter that I read to you had the signature of
the
George Affle, General Secretary, and it was on a colored letterhead. Now, this one is in black and white.
Black and white.
And it's signed by a man who says he is the organizer of the GFP. Now, all calls to his phone have gone unanswered for some strange reason.
He's not answering.
Yes, but we will get to the matter. But let me bring into the conversation now man Obed Kingaglo. Now, he has been following everything that has to do with the Electoral Commission and matters arising, and he's joined us. Obed, so for those who are still running with the story that the Ghana Freedom Party, Ikuadonko's party, has put out from the race, basically, confirm to us.
In your words, it's in the gutters. But tell us about it.
Tutuwaa.
Right, so Joshua and Tutuwaa, that narrative cannot be true because we, as journalists who report from the Electoral Commission, can confidently say that the vice presidential candidate has filed nomination to contest for the election on behalf of the GFP. They were at the Electoral Commission headquarters to file the nomination, and Deputy Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Tete, received the nomination in company of Mr. Bano Bio. So, to confirm that they are contesting the election.
So it's been filed. Roman Father is the nominee for the GFP.
Yes, but there's a caveat because
Talk
when
to
you
me.
file nomination, the Electoral Commission must go through the forms, and just as the others were disqualified,
Right.
or passed, will determine so. So we are waiting for the Electoral Commission to give that announcement as to whether or not he's passed the criteria.
Now,
Okay.
it's quite interesting.
Wow. But it would have been nice to get responses from the organizer of the party, because it literally make sense to me.
We will
How-
speak to him though. We'll try because
Just make it make sense to me
we'll
that
try and get. Okay. So let me now tell the whole world. My producer just reached out to us. All his phone lines have gone unanswered. So if you know Richard Bochi,
are they off or they've gone unanswered?
like they are off. The
Off.
two lines are off. The 020 and 024, they are all off. So if you know Richard Boche and he's anywhere around, you tell him that I want him to speak to him. So please, he should put his phones on. Oh, but don't run,
Because
please.
I mean, as I was saying, if they claim that indeed this was in honor of Ikuadonko, why did they have to file a day before releasing this letter?
Exactly. And
It makes zero sense
And
to
we
me.
saw press statements.
We did. We saw
Press
videos.
statements right after this particular statement purportedly came out. We saw press statements that were basically saying that yes, they have pulled out from the race and that they would contest in subsequent elections, but not this one. But Obed, you were there. You saw Roman Fada come into foul. We saw Ikuadonko also come into foul. I mean, was he alone? Was Roman Fada alone?
No. Roman Fada was not alone. We saw some other party executives, but certainly the organizer wasn't part of that entourage that came. We saw others who were also clad in black,
Okay.
signifying that they are mourning Ikuadonko. Yeah, so he was not there alone. He came there with 3 other persons, 1 woman and 2 gentlemen.
Do we know if
Okay.
these persons are executives of the party?
They are members of the party, but they are not
executives
of the party.
But it's interesting how nobody really bothered about the executives of the party till now.
Exactly.
Now we really want to know the executives of the Ghana Freedom Party.
Very interesting. very interesting. GFP. All we knew was
I think
Ikuadonko
Ikuadonko had literally dominated the entire party with her
Exactly.
presence and everything.
Exactly.
So we barely paid attention to who the organizer, the general secretary, the women's organizer even was. I don't think we bothered.
And it's a failure on our part.
Again, the information we are getting also is that so the vice presidential candidate who is now contesting as the flag bearer of the party
Who is the nominee?
was impressed upon not to contest. Yeah, we are getting that from. So it's a political game. So we are told that some parties impressed on him not to contest.
So many sources for this
Yes,
single
but he
issue.
defied those
Right.
directive and filed the nominations today.
Because there's also a school of thought that says that, well, there are powers that be who are really pulling strings. Some political parties are also pulling strings.
Because they have interest.
Exactly.
And you know that it has so much to do with the balloting as it stands now. I wouldn't want to go into details just yet.
You don't want to go into details and say Ikuadonko or the GFP is number 7 on the ballot paper. And so what will a withdrawal mean now that we know that the law does not explicitly state what should be done?
At this moment.
It raises a lot of questions. But we'll also get to speak to Roman Fada, the man at the center of this, Philip Apia Kubi.
who has been accused of defying the party's
some
stance
party structure.
to contest.
Party according to what we are hearing, party says let's not contest, let's honor Ikuadonko, let's pull out. And there's a faction that says no, we'll not pull out, we'll still go ahead. So we'll get to understand from him exactly where he stands and how all of these plays out going forward. But Obed Kingaglo, thank you so much.
Right.
That's our man who's been following things. And you know what? Share your thoughts with me. I mean, as it stands now, the hurdle has not totally been crossed by Philip Apia Kubi, because what is going to happen now is that the Electoral Commission would have to pass him. The Electoral Commission would have to say that your nomination has gone
Been
through.
accepted
so
or
it's been
otherwise.
accepted. So now you can replace Ikuadonko on the ballot paper, because, mind you, the EC had to withhold printing of ballot papers because of the demise of Ikuadonko, which is also the first. We've never seen this in our political history. And so there's a lot of grey area here that we need to explore.
Explored. I agree. I'll be very happy. I know that we will bring listeners up to speed on what this would mean, because there are some saying that somebody may want to contest the law on what the provisions are in terms of a situation like this, because apparently, as it stands, the law only details what can be done in the demise or absence of a parliamentary candidate and not for the presidential candidate.
It's as though we never anticipated that the presidential candidate would lose his
Midday.
life. Well, this is Start today on Star 103.5 FM. Share your thoughts with us. They're welcome on our Facebook live stream on facebook.com/Star 103.5 FM. And when we return from this break, we'll pick some of your messages and then we'll also try and raise Roman Father on the phone line so that we can have a conversation with him as to the way forward. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back.
The pandemic has had a generally deleterious effect on the economy of African nations. This has devastated many African economies and sunk them deeper into unsustainable debt and economic downturn.
Remember these words from former President Mahama. Now, as campaign season heats up, he is pointing fingers at the current administration. Is this not for political gain? Ghanaians deserve genuine solutions, not mere propaganda. We've faced global challenges together. Let's seek a leader who offers plans and progress, not just critiques. Let's build Ghana up, not tear it down. Vote number 1. Vote for Bawumia. Vote for the MPP.
Hey, Mapadi, so you still haven't gotten any job in the last 6 years?
Bro, I'm even getting depressed, Charlie. If you don't have any money to get trained in any skill, Charlie, you can't survive in this economy. Even those with big degrees are sitting at home.
There's good news coming. Have you heard of the National Apprenticeship Program?
National Apprenticeship Program?
Yes, John Mahama and the NDC will be launching a National Apprenticeship Program in 2025 to offer free technical and vocational training to all persons desirous of learning a craft.
Did you say free?
Yes, free technical and vocational training in carpentry, ceramics, welding, tiling, hairdressing, vulcanizers, fashion designing, electricals, POP, catering, and many others for young people who sign on to the program. People who complete the training will also be issued a certificate and provided with a startup capital and equipment to establish their own businesses.
Hey, you don't mean it.
You shock, eh? The National Apprenticeship Program is the hope of every unemployed Ghanaian.
Charlie, then we need to kick out these liars and nation wreckers and bring back JM. Because
Vote for change. Vote for John Dramani Mahama and the NDC.
Star today. First, fast, and credible.
Thank you so much for sticking and staying with us right here on Star today on Star 103.5 FM. Let's pay attention to some of the stories. And the Money Center for Policy and Education has expressed concerns that the majority of manifesto promises made by major political parties lack clarity and quantifiable metrics. Imani believes popular manifestos from the NPP, the NDC, and Movement for Change lack feasibility, potentially hindering their implementation. According to the think tank, the ineffective monitoring and procurement processes that often characterize political parties' governance when in power renders many of these political promises impractical. Dennis Asari is a senior research associate at the center, and he highlighted the challenges observed in the manifestos of the three parties.
We can count about 574 promises. This is not surprising, because in 2019, when we did the ordinal assessment, we could count almost about 512 promises. So it is a pattern. Because we do manifestos, we've seen it before. And under that, you see, you also categorize it under the themes. So the lemon green is the non-quantifiable ones. And you see that most of the manifestos are centered around the economy. And that is mainly because of where we are. And as I already mentioned, the economy is a bigger theme that covers the macroeconomy and other things like job creation, agriculture, and others. Then you see that there are more non-quantifiable promises than the ones that we can specifically say no, or the service that they want to provide. So with this, we say that there are more vague promises in that manifesto than there are more quantifiable ones. If you go to the NDC's manifesto, if we can count about 851 promises in the NDC's manifesto, and it follows a pattern. So you can also see that most of the manifestos too are centered around the economy and education and social service. Same as the NPP one too, we see a lot more non-quantifiable promises than the quantifiable and semi-quantifiable ones, which also shows some more vague promises in the political party manifesto, the NDC's manifesto. Now, if you look at Movement for Change too, Same pattern, economy being the big one. Another pattern, you see a lot more non-quantifiable promises. So what we say is that most of the promises within the manifestos that these three political parties have launched is actually vague. You can't quantify them, or you can't really see the specific service that they want to offer. And so in case any of them is elected, it is very difficult for you to hold them accountable. Secondly, it is very difficult for you to even have an idea of, in terms of it costing and its implementation, how it is going to be done.
Well, you just heard from Dennis Asare. He's a senior research associate at Imani, talking about the political party manifestos. But let's go over the phone lines now, because we've been joined by Dennis. Thank you very much for your time this evening on the bulletin, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, first of all, I'd like to understand why you believe that the manifestos from the political parties are vague.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and good evening to your listeners. So we say that we are vague because we all understand the current macroeconomic situation we find ourselves as solitary development constraints, and so you would expect that if parties thoroughly reflected on what is possible within 4 years, taking cognizance of where we stand as a country, their promises will be much more clearer, will be very specific on what they are going to do, so that citizens can understand exactly what service they are going to offer with these political promises. But when we did a deep dive through the manifesto, what we were clearly able to see is that most of the promises do not exactly see what the parties want to do. And so that aspect of, and so what, or what exactly will happen if you do this, that is what is missing. However, there are instances where they make very clear and a very specific statement, and so that will help citizens hold them accountable in case they are elected into office. And what we have been pushing since 2008 with the manifesto is that politicians are very clear with their business plans, because they have that tendency to be very vague, so that people do not really see within what they are going to do. But even in our experience with political party manifestos, they almost at all times end up becoming policy frameworks that will be costed in budget. Therefore, we need to start advocating and pushing for them to make very clear statements so citizens can make informed choices.
Now, let's put into context these two policies from the two leading political parties, the NPP and the NDC, especially with regards their plans for mining in the country. We all know that the NDC has said they're going to be instituting a gold board, and the NPP is looking at empowering the Geological Survey Authority. Help us put us into context. When you say that some of these policies are vague, take these two instances, for instance. Take these two instances, I beg your pardon, for instance. How vague are they?
So we say that the promises that you just mentioned are vague in the sense that, so for example, if you're establishing a gold board, and so when you set up the gold board, and specifically to the promise that you just mentioned, the NDC, we wouldn't call that promise that you just mentioned, that is setting up the gold board, as vague. We call it semi-quantifiable. They mentioned, if you read the entire promise around establishing the gold board, they mentioned the specific things that the gold board is going to do to support small-scale mining. So in our assessment, that will be semi-quantifiable, because if the gold board is established, then those actions or those services can be delivered. However, in our technical analysis, we found out that most of those actions or functions that the NDC wants the gold board to actually come and execute, that is the core work of the Minerals Commission at the moment. And so you wouldn't need the gold board to actually deliver all those promises. And so in our analysis, that will be semi-quantifiable. But if you look at the feasibility of that promise, we will be creating a duplication of function within the mineral space. On the issue of the NPP saying that they are going to support or fund the Geological Survey Department, you don't specifically see how much they are going to improve their budget. You don't specifically see what sort of work that the Geological Survey is going to do. But their aim is that with funding for the Geological Survey, they'll be able to generate more geological data that will guide small-scale mining. And so in terms of the business, it looks like, okay, so just funding the Geological Survey for them to undertake the gathering of data, what does it lead to? And so it leads to generating data. And what does that will lead to small-scale miners having access to geological data. So the two that you just mentioned are semi-quantifiable ones.
Okay.
However, we're saying that if you fund the geological survey department and small-scale miners have access to that geological data, what we know is that the sustainable small-scale miners actually use geological data, but it is those illegal miners that do not use geological data in their work. So what service would that render? And that is what is missing. And so what change would that really bring? And that is those are some of the critical questions that we ask. But the other side of that business is that you already know how much geological survey is funded. You know their budget. You know their financial constraints. So by how much are you willing to improve their funding so that you don't go and improve their funding by 2% and say that we have improved the funding of geological survey? Meanwhile, it is very infinitesimal and it will be very insignificant in terms of the pool of funds that they need. Geological survey work is expensive. Exploring and gathering data, especially in the mining sector, is very expensive. And so by how much are you willing to add to the geological survey so that they can really move the needle? So that is the level of vagueness that will come into this NPP report. So that's how big that NPP's promise of funding the geological survey is. You don't specifically know that by how much are you going to add to their financing. So those are some
okay. Now, talking about levels of vagueness, talk to me about what would really constitute this problem, if I may call it that, because clearly these policies are proposed in a bid to proffer some solutions, but if they are vague, would you say that it is just deliberate to avoid accountability, or it is just an oversight?
Well, it could be any of the two reasons that you have given. As I said, political parties have the tendency to be vague. And that is why civil society, the media, we try to ask questions so that they are very clear exactly what to do. And because of that, we've seen some improvement and some clarity we bring into their messaging. And so what I think is that a part of that may be deliberate, that we don't provide enough information so that citizens can hold them to it. So, for example, if you're saying that you are going to give tax incentives to SMEs, what type of tax incentives? You've been in government for 8 years. You should know the challenges that SMEs face. You've implemented more than 5 different SME-supported programs. You should know the financial constraints and the kind of sustainable financing model that works for SMEs. And so that you propose that, okay, so if I set up an SME bank, this is exactly what they are going to do to solve the financing constraints of SMEs. If you avoid saying that, then you make it very difficult for us to know exactly what you are going to do. And so when you come into power, it's like the states or citizens are giving you a blank check. You can do anything around that, dance around it, and come and claim that you have actually executed on that promise. And that is what we want to avoid, where politicians go on a wild chase trying to do something that essentially do not really address the structural challenge of the main problems within the sector. So we are trying to bring some specificity and clarity to what they say they will do so that we can hold them accountable to do exactly what they said.
Okay. I want to find out if the politicians have access to these documents.
Yes, the critical analysis will be published on our website, and I think in the next few weeks the presentation will be published, and some key outputs from it will be published, and so we can all engage and discuss. Yeah.
Okay, so going forward, what is your expectation after releasing these findings?
What we want to see is that citizens must ask questions. We are at a very critical point of our development. At this point, more than 40% of our population are multidimensionally poor. We have a very big situation on our hands in the energy sector, where the IMF estimates that the energy sector debt could reach about $2 billion, which is higher than their programmed estimation when they were given as a fund program, which means that it's become one of the vulnerabilities within the IMF program. Revenues are not growing, and we have a very expensive public expenditure framework that we are working with. We need politicians to be very clear, specific, and focus on what they can address or what exactly they can do or what is possible within 4 years, and not allow them to make very wild statements that end up ballooning the public expenditure and keeping us in that cycle of debt, that cycle of fiscal deficit, where we may end up at another maybe IMF program or another international development program just to address our fiscal restlessness. We want to address fiscal restlessness. We want real development. We want to address poverty. And if you're a serious country that wants to really see a change, you must be then clear with your plans and be much more narrow and focused, and so that you're able to have a laser view of what exactly is possible, what you can do, what you can address, so that you are able to use the little revenues that can be efficiently. So citizens must ask questions. The media must ask questions. Everybody must ask these political parties between now and December 7th. We need to start interrogating them so that we move away from the slogan and the music and the dance into real questions. And so if you say you will do this, what exactly does that will solve? That is what we are looking for.
Right. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you. I've been engaging Dennis Asari. He's a senior research associate at Imani. Let's talk about the legislature now. Because with just 2 days to the intended recall of Parliament by the Speaker of the House, Alban Kingsford Suman Agbabin, many are concerned if this will indeed happen, or perhaps the fear of the Chief Justice of a constitutional crisis in Parliament will linger. This follows an action by Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekbo, dragging the Speaker of Parliament to court, seeking, among others, a declaration that recalling Parliament while the status of 4 members of Parliament are not known would be unlawful and illegal. He's also seeking the declaration that any post-17 October 2024 composition of the 8th Parliament with the said 4 members of Parliament who have declared to contest as independent candidates is unlawful. Nikpakwe Samoa Ado is counsel for Member of Parliament for South Dai. Take a listen to him.
So you recall that the matters before the Supreme Court had to do with the interpretation of Article 97A. Right? Okay. Now, if you, as a citizen, and in this particular instance, a certain MP, believes that there's a vacancy that has been occasioned by the act of a certain MP, Article 99 says you have to go to the High Court to seek a declaration to that effect. So, Mr. Roxton has invoked the jurisdiction of the High Court under Article 99, and he is asking the High Court to make certain declaration. You understand? That during the lifetime of this Parliament, one of the independent elected parliamentarians has taken up the membership of the political party. And so we want the High Court to declare that independent parliamentarian seat vacant. He has also listed 3 other people who were elected on the ticket of political parties who have also decided to go independent in the upcoming election. And so he's asking the High Court to declare their seat vacant pursuant to Article 99. That is different from an interpretation of Article 97. If the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, in the decision or judgment that it comes up with, interprets Article 97 in a manner that means that the affected MPs can still maintain their seats, then yes, the rest will become moot, because then it would have been overtaken by the Supreme Court's decision. But if the Supreme Court does not only interpret Article 97, then it will be for the High Court to apply that interpretation with respect to Article 99. So Mr. Roxton's case is based on Article 99, not Article 97.
You just heard the counsel for Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekbo there, Nikpakwe Samoa Ado. But let's go over the phone lines now and have a conversation on the back of this development and speak to the Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Rashid Draman. Doc, thank you very much for joining us on the bulletin this evening. Now, first of all, new legal processes have been instituted to seek to bar the Speaker from recalling Parliament on Thursday. What do you make of all of this?
Very disturbing. I think these are not very good signals for the health of our democracy, particularly for the health of our parliament. the occasional judicial reviews and judicial interference in the work of Parliament is okay and is good. But when it becomes the norm, as it is turning out to be now, then everybody should begin to get worried, because if we are not careful, the two arms of government are going to get into a continuous fight, which in the end I think would affect Parliament more than it does the judiciary. And should that happen, we might have a Parliament that becomes dysfunctional, because at the least opportunity, if somebody is not pleased, rather than what we know before, which is the members of Parliament, their leaders sitting down and speaking to each other and tackling the very difficult issues. That's what we know. It's supposed to happen in the Parliament. These days, the least discomfort, they run to the court. And, you can imagine how much time we have lost already because of just that one suit, which is generated, a series of events. And we have already lost close to a month. And we don't have very much time before these elections. So should this continue, in the short term, we are going to see a Parliament that is not going to be able to do anything before election 2024. And then in the longer term, precedents and bad ones would have been set.
You believe that this sort of friction between the legislature and judiciary will result in a bad precedent?
Yes, because when we fast forward to the 9th Parliament, whoever is majority and whoever is minority, if there's anything that is going to put particularly the party in majority in some type of discomfort, they will run to the court.
But, Doc, I understand you, but is it entirely wrong to seek some sort of interpretation from the courts when somebody is unsettled about a legal provision?
No, it's okay. I mean, I don't know whether you heard me from the beginning. I said judicial interpretations and judicial reviews are acceptable in democracies, but they are rare events. When they become the norm, as they are becoming now, then that is when we all have to begin to get worried.
Okay.
Yes, and that is my fear, because you see, what triggered this whole challenge that we currently have is that somebody ran to the speaker and said a precedent has been set. And then just look at the series of events that we have witnessed. In the same vein, I mean, there's a possibility of a lot of mischief. People can use the law for a lot of mischief. People can use the law to stop or to, if you like, prevent the progression of some legislative agenda. And we are likely to see this in the future. So that's what I am worried about. And that is what I'm saying. What we know happens in every parliament is that, when there are disagreements, those are difficult moments, and the leaders would have to sit down and talk. You have to give and you have to take. In a multi-party democracy, you cannot get it 100% all the time. And I think that the earlier our leaders get this, and try to understand this, I think the better the processes are going to be for us. Otherwise, I have seen many parliaments where for 4 years nothing was achieved because people are running to the court every day.
But I mean, in a bid to avoid a bad precedent being set, by way of advice, what would you say to the legislators?
Well, if I could offer any advice, I would say that by all means, when things are not very clear, I think they should go to court. But I think where, for instance, precedents have been set where they themselves, based on their calculation, know that this could, drag. I think they are better advised to sit down, as they have done all the time, to sit down and dialogue and find some kind of common understanding, even if it means agreeing to disagree. Because look, let me tell you this. Parliament is being recalled on Thursday, assuming they all, obey the Supreme Court order. Assuming the NDC group says, okay, we are going to obey the Supreme Court order, then they go into the House. In most instances, they don't have quorum. In most instances, they don't have the numbers to do business. But they agree not to raise it, because unless somebody raises it, the Speaker would allow the business of the House to continue. But if we say now everything has to be subjected to some kind of legal interpretation, people are going to get into all kinds of mischiefs. So at every moment they will say, we don't have the numbers to make a decision. Then the presiding officer has no choice but to obey the standing orders. And in that case, again, they'll come back, the same thing, especially in this electoral season where most MPs are in their constituencies and are campaigning.
Right.
So for me, I think my point here is, while the legal processes are going on, I think we should have another track, which is the political negotiation and dialogue and deal making. Otherwise, I think on Thursday, I can bet you we are going to see a repeat of what happened the last time they met.
Right. Thank you very much for speaking to us. That was Dr. Rashid Draman. He's Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Let's still stay on politics, because with just 32 days to the December polls, the question is, who wins your vote? According to a latest poll by Global Info Analytics, many Ghanaians are still undecided on who they will vote for. Is this the reality on the ground? Well, GH1 News' Mary Appiah has been engaging a cross-section of the public. Let's find out what they have to say.
We have 32 days until the December 7th elections. However, according to Global Info Analytics, 12 out of every 100 Ghanaian is still unsure of who they want to vote for. We hit the streets to find out if you are sure of who you want to vote for come December 7th.
For me, I go for John Dramani Mahama, because I saw what he did in 4 years. So when I compare that one to these 8 years, I see that it's far better than the 8 years. So he deserves to be given another chance. Then he will come and we will see what he has for us.
I'll be voting for John Dramani Mahama for the NDC. And then for the parliamentary candidate, I'll vote for Eslo Usu. Because I've lived in Danso for a long time. And recently I moved around, I noticed that Eslo Usu has done a marvelous job. I don't vote based on political lines. I vote on what I see.
I'm going to vote, but it's all in my mind. Even though the system is difficult now, we have to vote wisely. And I urge the youth to vote wisely and not take gifts from the political parties because they need money. But they should just do the right thing, because it's you that's going to suffer the 4 years. So we should all plan of a peaceful elections.
If you look at some years ago, how we're buying petrol and how we're buying things, food items at the market, and now, so that is why we are going to use for this election vote. We will look at things, how things are going, then we used to vote. So look at your pocket before you vote.
Well, those were a cross-section of Ghanaians on their decision as to who to vote for this December elections. Let's talk about security now. And the security analyst Adib Sani has slammed the Ghana Police Service for exploiting prospective recruits into the service. Well, this comes after the service pegged a fee of 980 cedis for medicals. The next phase of the exercise is expected to begin on November 7. Here are excerpts of a statement signed by Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Police Service, ACP Grace Ansa Akrofi.
All successful candidates are to take note that the cost of the medical examination is 980 Ghana cedis, which is the only money to be paid during the recruitment exercise. We therefore wish to caution the successful candidates in particular and the public in general that anyone who demands any other payment from any person should be considered a fraudster and must be reported to the police. We also wish to caution the unsuccessful candidates against making payment to any person demanding money under the pretext of assisting them to be recruited. Meanwhile, unsuccessful candidates have been notified accordingly, and we wish them better luck next time.
Well, speaking to Starr News on the back of this development, Adib Sani is a security analyst and he described the move as exploitative.
It's not just unnecessary, it is exploitative and very unfortunate and a big dent on the reputation of the Ghana Police Service because these are individuals who are not employed. They are desperate. They are looking for jobs. So why are we taking advantage of them? This is a big shame. And I think it should be rescinded. Besides, to pay over 900 cedis to go for medicals, yet you don't get qualified, I think it's a bit unfair. And Ghana is the only country I see this happening. I mean, you go to other jurisdictions, these people are celebrated because they have decided to avail themselves to serve the country, even if it demands them putting their lives on the line. So why would we still charge them money to serve the country? And when you do that, it becomes also dangerous because from the scratch, you make it look like it's all about money. And so when they are finally recruited, they also do things to recoup the money they paid before they got recruited to the very final stage. So I think it is unacceptable and should be scrapped immediately.
Is it your concern that, yes, beyond it being exorbitant among others, it is going to unduly, be unfavorable to others who necessarily may not have the means to afford that amount of money?
Absolutely. I mean, the poverty levels in Ghana is quite high. Unemployment is also quite high. We have a lot of human insecurity that is making a lot of people in the country live on less than $1 a day. As low as it might sound to urban dwellers, maybe like you and I, it is big money to some other individuals. I remember recently there was a job fair at the Independence Square, and people didn't just have to come look for jobs. They were actually, fed for free because it's assumed that they don't have jobs. So they wouldn't even have the money to buy the food. So why would you be recruiting and be charging them such amount? And believe it or not, there are a lot of persons who will be qualified yet would not be able to go through because they wouldn't have those money. And I think that is unfair.
But it has been the practice, right, that the police usually would charge for medicals, correct?
And yes. And this is something some of us have spoken against for some time because in some instances it is even illegal because it has to go through parliament and all that. But never before have we seen such exorbitant fee charged for potential recruits.
Almost 1,000 cedis.
Absolutely. And trust me, people are going to call their uncles and aunts and parents and even, I'm sure, distant relatives in other parts of the country looking for that money. Trust me. It's going to be very difficult for some people to be able to afford such an amount in the name of joining the police service. It is exploitative, I repeat, and so should be rescinded as soon as possible to enable everybody have a fair and level playing field.
So do you want it rescinded or you want the amount reduced?
I think it's something that shouldn't be entertained in the first place.
Okay.
The amount should not just be reviewed. I think payment to serve the country is something that we cannot allow.
You just heard from our Deep Sunnies, a security analyst. But let's go for a quick commercial break. We are back with the campaign trail after this.
From the classroom to the lab, from the village to the city, the NPP's commitment to education is building a brighter Ghana. Free SHS isn't just about free tuition, it's an investment in Ghana's future. We have topped it up with free TVET and STEM education, skilled graduates, innovative thinkers, and a thriving economy. That's the promise of free SHS.
3 of my cousins have benefited from free SHS since 2017. One has graduated and is in nursing training. The other 2 are also in the university. I'll vote number 1. I'll vote for Baumia on December 7th.
We are building a better tomorrow through education. Vote NPP. Vote number 1. Vote Baumia. Baumia means business. Estro.
Starr Today. First, fast, and credible.
You're welcome back from that break. Up next on the broadcast is the campaign trail. Well, this is your Simply the Best Star 103.5 FM. And EIB certainly remains your 2024 election hub. It is some 9 minutes to the top of the hour, 6. And tonight on the campaign trail, your election hub is not only focused on elections on the local scene. We are also very much concerned with happenings all over the world. Even though we are concerned with Ghana's elections and the various campaigning activities of the main 2 political parties, we will shortly cross over to the United States of America. Because today is election day. US citizens and voters are torn between voting for the Republicans' Donald Trump, who is making another shot at the presidency, or the Democrats' Kamala Harris. And to help us unpack these issues is an international relations expert, Dr. Ishmael Horovo. He's already seated in the studios. And remember that you can talk to us on Facebook, because you're live on Facebook, on Star 103.5 FM. And also on WhatsApp, that number 055-288-0216. The number again is 055-288-0216. This is your campaign trail. We'll bring you that conversation shortly. But before that, The flag bearer of the governing New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has pledged to set up a tomato factory in Akomadan in the Ofinso North constituency of the Ashanti region. According to him, the factory will help process tomatoes, which are grown on a large scale in that area. He also promised to set up an agric mechanization center in the area to support farmers in that area. He was speaking at a community connect as part of his campaign in the Ofinso North constituency.
Midday, if you dear yebe for yebe district agric mechanization centers ama every district if you dear yede beboa for ebeboa yen minim say ebeboa for said a friend kayano adia me pesa me yeso eboa for ewo Ofinso North yebeye tomato factory amamo tomato factory amamo in Ofinso North ha choboy ishisha tosu miensa nyame adom me ba ene Ghana ye light bill no akosoro the entire akosoro ne saying ye crack oil and gas edi ye electricity ye di free manonea oho ne buo soro eba na electricity buo no so akosoro me pesa Ghana ye fa nhihye foforo ye mfa kwan foforo ye mfa oil and gas no ye mfa nto nchen and go for solar power.
Well, you just heard from the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party there, promising the people of Akomadan to build a tomato factory for them. Also, he says that we pay a lot of money for electricity because the country imports oil to be able to get electricity provisions. But when he's voted into power, he will introduce solar in a bid to provide power to the country. But let's switch comes and go to the NDC because former President John Dramani Mahama has accused the governing New Patriotic Party of dishonesty and inconsistency because he said this when he on a campaign tour in the OT region.
I know baby I'm sorry. Me family phone. Na ma share and your ma AC or share social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Opera News. Na or share and your ma AC. Na angwangwa sem me ko share ya. Me will say MPP for Oma ye omo advert. Bro focus on Oma show say incentivize the youth to go into poultry production. Say omo be boa ama emabunu ewura enkoko say ye enkoko edwuma no. Omo be boa ama emabunu akoye bi. Na we ade a NDC wo ye manifesto mu ma kan na me kan no because yebema emabunu no enkoko mma ena me ka say won kokon kitenkete say na be ya omunyi a omo tokosi a ombetimi aton no monya sika enkoko ninyi no omoton a omoton asset nama ombenya sika ena MPP for the koye advert omode sreme say me say yebema emabunu enkoko kitenkete na enye se adwuma no na omode ombehwehwe ama emabunu hey anope me sorry a omo aye advert say omo so omo bebo emabunu ma omo aye and that's why I say that NPP is consistently the most inconsistent party. They are consistently inconsistent. Because adia mosre say enye juma efata emabunu. Ene de masa ba be advert say mo de mo ba mo be boy emabunu mo ma hwe nkoko. Ezu. Wo omo de o hwe omo man omo constitutional. Omo say they are property owning democracy. E kire say omo ye party a omo ba mu a omo de ne da omenim ene se ombenya japade ama omo ho Sanso na mfie wotwe. Sanso na mfie wotwe. Omo baaye, omo aye.
You just heard from the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, accusing the NPP of being consistently inconsistent, in his own words, because he says that when he first introduced the policy of encouraging the youth to go into poultry farming, the New Patriotic Party ran a lot of ads mocking him, saying that he didn't have ideas. He just wanted to provide what he says in Kokon Keten. But he woke up today just to find out that the NPP is also now encouraging the youth to go into poultry farming, indicating that the NPP may be bereft of ideas. But he also argues that that party is not a party to be voted for because they are only interested in making properties for themselves and not have the interest of the country at heart. That was John Dramani Mahama. But let's go over to the United States of America, where millions of Americans are voting to elect the next president of the country. Now, voters are torn between Vice President Kamala Harris and former U.S. President Donald Trump, who is making another comeback. Joanna LeBlanc is a national security, law and foreign policy expert, and she explains what influences the choices U.S. voters make.
Well, I think that's a great question, right? You talk about religion, which plays a key role within the Republican Party in particular. They're driven by the Bible, by God, and so on. But when we look at Mr. Trump's record in terms of some of the crimes that he's been convicted of, it makes you question morality and religion. But I do think ultimately that if VP Harris were to be elected, I think religion will play less of a role when it comes to global politics, whereas religion will play more of a role in the foreign policy that would be implemented by Mr. Trump. For example, we know that when you look at AGOA, for example, Uganda was recently removed because of its anti-LGBTQI plus stance, the law that was signed by President Museveni. I think that under a Trump administration, you will see that Uganda will be invited back to AGOA to be a member, right? Whereas under a Harris administration, you will see more sanctions for those who are violating fundamental human rights.
You just heard from Joanna LeBlanc, who is a national security, law and foreign policy expert there, explaining factors that influences the choice of voters in the United States of America. But let's come straight into the studio and have a conversation because Dr. Ishmael Holovo is seated in the studios. Doc, thank you very much for your time this evening and good evening.
Thank you and good evening to you and your listeners.
Absolutely. I don't know if you heard what Joanna said, but she argues that religion may not play so much of a role in these elections. From your understanding, from where you sit, is it the same?
Yes, but it has some level of impact on how they will vote.
Okay.
Because if you look at the campaign, virtually, those who are conservative, the white conservative, the evangelicals, they are interested in Trump because they believe that the path that Harris and Biden is taking the country is not the right one.
When you say parts,
so
what are the
for
specifics?
instance, the argument about if women should have the right to abortion, pro-life against the other side. So
the LGBTQ.
LGBTQ. So if you look at the Republicans, they are more of the conservative. They are more interested in the traditional setup, making the family the center of society.
Okay.
And so if you look at a document that was linked to the Republican Party, what's called Agenda 2025, which was virtually linked to Trump, although he has not confirmed that he's part of it. If you look at some of the things in that document, it's all about reversing some aspects of globalization and some aspects of what we now call the human rights regime, such as the issues of abortion, the issues of LGBTQ plus, and so forth and so on. And these are virtually linked to issues of where the person's religion lies. So, yes, in as much as it will not have the major impact, it has a significant impact on what they will be doing.
Okay, but let's look at the American country on its whole. Largely, I believe that from where I sit, up in my observation, it looks as though they are liberals. They like to take certain decisions that they don't like to be bound by a lot of restrictions. Is that what you see as well?
Yes, they don't want to be bound by a lot of restriction, but at the same time, there's that section of the society that thinks that the society is transforming too much, and therefore there's the need to...
And that section, do they constitute the majority?
Yeah, it would come out during the vote because virtually Trump stands for that that section of society who thinks that some of the transformation, such as we have said, LGBTQ plus and transgender, all those things for them is too just rapid and not what they wish. So you can't actually point at either they are in the majority or the minority. It depends on how this is, because once Trump comes, some of the advances they've made on some of this to be rolled back. Because then he himself doesn't believe in some of this, and if you look at some of the major supporters, Elon Musk became, because of the need, he believes that we should have more children. So yes, you will see some of these dynamics at play.
Okay, now let's talk about the elections in general. How do you think it will play out? Because today, for instance, I was monitoring what was happening in North Carolina, for instance, one of these deciding states, and it was raining heavily, and the people didn't even bother, to probably stay indoors. They were unperturbed by the weather condition. They went all out to vote. Tell me, how generally do you think these elections will play out?
So it's a very tight election. Okay, so initially Trump was in some level of comfortable lead after the first debate where Biden was virtually all over the place. But then the emergence of Harris as a candidate virtually narrowed that gap, and at a point Trump was doing a catch-up. But virtually he was able to catch up. And so in those swing states, because of the nature of the American system, the swing states become very important, because if you want to win the election, you need to win them. So for instance, if you look at Biden's vote in 2020, it boils down to about 6 of those swing states that he won, and flipping it from what Trump did in 2016. So as we go into the election, you realize that most of them at the last tail end of the campaign were focused on those swing states, because in this system, it's about the number of regions you are winning. So the more the regions you win, the more the points you accumulate towards the presidency. So it doesn't matter actually the number of people who actually voted for you. It matters the number of states that you are able to win. And depending on the electoral college that those states will have, cumulatively will lead you to the presidency. As it is now, the system is such that you may end up winning the popular vote. So for instance, if they put all the votes together, what the vote that people are casting today together, you may have a larger number than somebody. But if the person win more of the states than you, particularly those swing states, then the person may end up being president. Well, you may have the popular vote and will not be president.
Very interesting. But let's look at the candidature of Trump and then Harris. What do they each bring to the table for the American people? So
Trump represents that section of the American public that thinks that there's a need to take back their country, that thinks that immigration is a big issue.
As he says, make America great again.
Great again. And you see, it's some of the losers from the process of globalization. So if you want to analyze, you analyze this way, that America itself, over time, have shifted away from production of low technological goods, industrial goods, to high tech. So in that process, a lot of rural and white industrial workers are no longer engaged in work, and so they seem to lose their influence and power that they yield. Now, so they see their jobs going to places like China with low labor costs, because the industries can move abroad and still re-import their goods into China. So Trump appealed to that section of the American society somehow, and that has been the core. And also those people who believe that the society is changing too fast for them. So for Trump, he has that connection with those people who think that America has been taken away from them and they need to claim it back and make it great again. And then Harris is that more moderate section of the American population who believe in advances in human rights, who believe in globalization, the need for other parts of the world to be treated equally. So if you take a look at the two candidates, they seem to have two different bases they want to speak to. But then those bases won't be enough. So you need to win over those who may be in the middle. Either you believe that American jobs have been taken to places like China and you want it to be rolled back, where you want Trump to come in and adopt the tough man approach against the process of globalization. So when you witness under Trump an escalation of the trade war between the U.S. and China, for instance, that is because those people feel like, yes, it's time to claim back American jobs. But even that, the issue of American leadership is important to some of the voters. So some of the voters are looking at the two candidates who will stand a better chance at confronting powers such as China, such as Iran, and so forth and so on. And for some, they see Trump as a more robust, somebody who can defend American national interests better than Harris, because Harris is virtually a promoter of globalization in as much as he wants to defend the U.S. interests. They will do it. If you look at Biden, for instance, they do it so much under the whole idea of globalization, trying to bring everybody on board. But at the core, is who defends the American national interest better, who makes American society better.
And this is what favors Trump.
If you take it like that America will be great by looking inward, then it favors Trump.
Okay.
But if people look at America as being better looking outward, then it favors Harris.
Okay.
Because that's a portion.
She believes in an inclusion sort of system.
In a more globalized world where all of us can have a say, all of us can grow together. But Trump seems to believe that the United States is paying too much for globalization, and there's the time to roll back and look inward and rebuild America on its own. So these are the two versions that we have.
Okay.
Yes, some American voters believe that, yes, the U.S. has paid too much for globalization. And so you see that under Trump, for instance, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Trump was on them to pay more for their own security. And that virtually sparked of some level of military expenditure among NATO members.
Okay.
And of course, some people may also be looking at, the issue of the world. Where is the world? With a lot of conflicts around. Who is better suited to deal with some of these
Now,
conflicts?
talking about conflicts, let's look at how how America has handled the Russia-Ukraine war. How will it impact these elections? Will it even impact in any way?
Well, depending on what the voters are looking for, those who are so much concerned about foreign policy may be looking at, if you look at Trump, his position seems to be like, Ukraine have to negotiate a deal, and whatever the nature of that deal is up to him. Biden and Harris seems to say that you must equip Ukraine to be able to defend itself against Russia. So these are the two different versions that we are having. On Israel, for instance, the two of them seems to have a common place, because if you bring Trump will support Israel all the way. Currently, Biden is supporting Israel all the way, although that has also somehow affected their campaign with the Muslim population. Muslim Americans are not so happy with how they are handling that conflict. But if Trump wins, then we expect the Israel to get more support than what they are getting now, because if you look at his policy when he was president, he was the U.S. president who recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So he's more pro Israel, if you look at it that way.
Does this mean that the Muslims in America are likely to tailor towards Harris?
Yes, they may, because if you look at the two, if you look at what Trump has done over the years, then you would think that, Harris is a lesser evil than Trump if you are a supporter of the Palestinians. So you may want to go Harris, because then at least in as much as they support Israel, they are still trying to ensure that Israel conducts its war within the limits of international, whatever that may mean, because then a lot of things that have happened that do not fall within that orbit.
Okay, but largely, talk to me about the dynamics that will be at play for this particular election. Because as you said, it's pretty tight. I have seen a number of polls that ties both candidates together. It's not that easy to say that it looks good for Trump or it looks good for Harris. That's just me.
Yeah. Of course, that's the nature of the election. So it's quite unpredictable for the polls. So all the polls are quite cautious of what they are saying.
So the dynamics. What will be the dynamics?
So the point is all boils down to those key states, those swing states, the deciding states.
Okay.
All right. So whoever is able to flip the states in his or her favor is likely to carry this election. And of course, on the within, if you talk about American domestic politics, there's issues about the economy. Most Americans are not happy with rising costs, which is, of course, all of us across the globe are seeing some level of inflationary pressure. So for those who are so much concerned about the economy and feel like the economy is not going in the right direction, then they may want Trump to come. Those who believe that maybe Harris presents a better option to better their lot, then they will want Harris to take over. So largely, we have to be watching out for the swing states. Because that's where the battle is, and that's why the last days of the campaign, all of them are interested in winning those states. Because immediately you're able to win enough of those states, you have your traditional hold. Just as maybe in Ghana, where we know that whatever happens, there will be a lot of votes from the Volta regime for the NDC, Ashanti regime for the MPP.
Absolutely.
Those are given. Now, once they are given, they don't give you the presidency. So you need to go to those battleground states, Pennsylvania, all those other ones, and then try to win them. If you win enough of those ones, then that is where you will be able to get to the presidency. If you don't get enough of those ones, you can't get to the presidency. So because it's a very tight race, it comes down to those states who win enough of them. And largely, it depends on what the voters are thinking, because many of the American voters until last minute were undecided because of the two versions. I think one of the things that have affected the Harris campaign is that the campaign seems to focus too much on the personality of Trump. So when you listen,
you think that they dedicated a lot of time to talk about
so
Trump.
So when you look at them, it's like everything they want to communicate is like, okay, vote for me because Trump is bad.
This. Okay.
Do you understand?
I see.
So the question is, if I vote for you because he's bad, then what do you stand
bring
for?
to the table, right?
What do you bring to the table? Do you understand?
So did you think she didn't tout her policies enough?
I think, from my observation, she has not so much spent a lot of time communicating what she herself wants to do with
But interestingly,
America.
despite what you're saying, she has a lot of backing from the black community especially.
Yes, so that's another dynamic to it. So, for instance, you see all these black superstars jumping to the Harris side. What is the policy for the black community? Is it just because she's black, so they should vote for the black person? They understand. So it's like saying, and most of them, when they are communicating, it's like, okay, she's a
black,
colored
she's
lady,
Hispanic,
and he's better for us than Trump. So and that is not a policy. If we say she's better than Trump,
it cannot make your lives better.
It cannot make your life better. How are you going to make it better?
Right.
And so the initial euphoria, where everybody was somehow, because they were not able to communicate clearly what exactly they will be doing for the various groups, it allowed Trump to roll back. Because when Harris came initially, Trump was way back in the polls. Then all of a sudden, because they focus so much on his personality, it takes a little bit away from their campaign, and he is able to virtually get back to the race.
Okay. Now, by way of education, talk to us about this electoral college system of the USA, because a lot of people seem to be talking about it.
Yes, so when you say the electoral college, this is an indirect way of electing the presidency. So what happens is that because the U.S. is let's say a number of states, okay, about 50 of them that join together to form that country. So it's like, let's assume that Ghana, you have Ghana, Togo, Benin, and they decide to form a federation.
Okay.
Now you have to ensure that there's some level of balance of influence that all of them will have. And so if, as me, you have a federation, you have Nigeria as part of that federation, you have Ghana as part of that federation, you have Benin and others, you realize that in terms of population, Nigeria is way big, bigger than all of us.
Absolutely.
So if you vote on the basis of population, what will happen is that anybody from Nigeria that accumulate the votes in Nigeria may as well always will be winning the presidency. So one of the ways you can address that is to go the electoral college one, where you now assign a certain number of points to each state based on population, of course.
Okay.
So the larger state will have a certain number of votes. So maybe 50 for a particular state. So that's how the U.S. is structured. So that if you win a particular state, automatically the number of votes in that state is given to you. All right. So it doesn't matter if you win that state.
So it's automatic.
Yes, it's automatic.
Okay.
Theoretically, the elector of that state could vote for a party rather than what the citizens of that state vote for. Theoretically, but over the years, it has evolved that the electors must vote for the party that actually won the state. Do you understand? So what happens then is that if you win a state like Arizona, the number of electoral college votes for Arizona will be given to you as president. So you have to accumulate.
Still based on the population.
Still based on the. So this one, it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 2 votes. All right. Most of them do the simple majority thing. So if you win by 100 votes, if the electoral college there is 50, you get it. Apart from few of them that do proportional something. But majority of them is simple majority. So if you win a state, the number of electoral college votes there will somehow automatically be given to you. All right. So as you are winning state by state, you are accumulating those points. Now, either you win by 1 vote or 100 votes or 1 million votes, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
What matters is the number of electoral college votes assigned to the state.
Okay.
Do you understand? So because you have about 538 electoral college votes distributed among these 50 states, you have to now win about 270 of them. Okay, so you can win, or maybe these swing states that we are talking about, you can win all of them by 20 votes. But you have the electoral college vote of all of them. You can equally win them by 1 million votes, but you will still have the electoral college votes of all of them.
Okay.
So as you win more states, particularly where maybe you think that the numbers are, and you accumulate enough to get the 270 mark, which is the mark that you have to hit to become an American president, then you are on your way to the White House. So because of the way it is, it can happen that maybe in a certain state where the population is large, you won that state with a margin of about maybe 20 million. All right? And your opponent is winning other states just by 20. Now, if you put the 20 in the other 59 states, it will not be up to your large margin of 20 million.
Okay.
But the 20 million gap that you thought you had doesn't matter. Because what matters is actually the number of points, let me call them points, that you get from winning a state.
Okay.
Cumulatively, that is what matters, and that's what is going to give you the White House.
Very interesting.
So let's do a comparison with Ghana. Our Ghanaian system is simply that all of us, our vote go into one basket and it's counted.
Absolutely.
So if you are designing a strategy in Ghana, you could, for instance, you concentrate on Ashanti and Greater Accra. They have the largest voter population. If we win Ashanti, maybe you get 80% of the vote there. That's huge. And you get maybe Greater Accra, for some reason, you also get 80%. You can leave your opponent to go and be winning all the other regions with the smaller populations. And once the Ashanti and Greater Accra gives you
the large number,
okay, the margin that your opponent will win in the other, if they don't sum up to the gap you have given in these 2 regions, you have won the presidency. That's why you look at the 2020 election. If you take the number of regions, the NDC will tell you that we won more regions, but they didn't win more votes. Now, if the system were to be modeled on the U.S. system, then perhaps the NDC would have won that election. But our system is the direct one.
Okay.
So in this case, what happens is that you have to get enough popular vote. You have to just get people to vote for you. Here, when you are designing a campaign strategy, you can focus on the areas where the population is huge. If you win those areas by huge margins, you are on your way to Jubilee House. In the U.S.,
it's not like that.
It's not like that.
Okay.
You have to virtually win enough of what they call states, and here, let's say, ours, we call it region. What they are calling state, you have to win enough of them to accumulate the number of points assigned to them, because they all don't carry the same points.
Okay.
Some will carry 14, some will carry 50. So as you win state by state, the electoral college vote of those states are cast for you.
Okay.
So when you accumulate it up to about 270, which is more than half, then you are safely in the White House.
Okay.
That's how it is.
Okay. Let's zone this down to Ghana. People have questioned what impact will this U.S. election have on this country policy-wise?
It has a lot of effect.
Okay.
The fact that we are even discussing this should tell you the power that the U.S. has in world affairs. To understand it, for instance, you have to look at the role the U.S., for instance, play in our latest IMF deal. It's a big player within that institution, and at the point our president was trooping to the U.S., trying to cut support for the deal. So, yes, it has a lot of implication. Now, if we look at some of the effects, some of the impact that the U.S. can have on our economy, anytime the U.S. Federal Reserve raises interest rates, developing countries like Ghana will struggle because most of your loans are dollar denominated. So when they raise interest rates, it's more profitable to buy U.S. Treasury than your Treasury, and also when that happens, because your currency is normally exchanged with the U.S. dollar, you see a lot of currency depreciation, and what it means that your loans become more expensive to service. So, for instance, if you take 2016, where the dollar was about $1 to 4 cedi. Now, if you take a loan at that time, all right, and you are coming to service it now, it means that you need more CDs as at this time to service the same loan.
Right.
And of course, the policy that the U.S. adopt will a large extent influence how the global economy and other geopolitical processes function. Now, if you look at Trump, for instance, virtually withdraw from Africa, okay, and allow the field for the Chinese and others to come in. As Biden took over and is trying to re-engage Africa, then you see this level of geopolitical competition in the African terrain, because then Biden and other U.S. establishment feel like virtually the African terrain has been left for the Chinese and others, and so they have to re-engage. So if whatever happens in the U.S., regardless of what, because as we speak, it's still the largest economy in the world, all right, and so it will have an impact across the world. As we are speaking, it's not only about Ghana, it's also about other nations like the Chinese, the Russians. They are all interested in what happens in the U.S. because as a major power, whereas the hegemon, or although we say that in recent time U.S. hegemony has declined, the decline is that the power resource that the U.S. used to possess, used to influence the world, relatively, other nations are catching up with the U.S. But still, they are the largest, because if you think about what we mean by power international relations, for instance, you are talking about military strength. Then in terms of military strength, you are not only talking about the number of soldiers you have.
Right.
You are talking about the organizational ability of the military. You are talking about the level of technology that military will use. And if you look at the U.S. military structure, so far, in spite of the advances of countries like China, they still have that military organization that is able to undertake operations in any part of the world. While China has modernized their military to take them time to have that level of organizational ability to respond to real threats across the world. For instance, if not for U.S. ability to deploy naval vessels to the Mediterranean, maybe Israel would have been struck by Iran, because they play a major role. So
it definitely has an impact.
It definitely have an impact.
Right.
Okay, it has an impact. You can talk about the economy. You can talk about other areas of life. So, in as much as we are in Ghana, what happened in the U.S., who governs or leads the U.S. is important to us. If it is Trump, for instance, what are the policies and what are the implications for Africa? So, for instance, if you are living in a country like Mali, you are living in a country where there are Muslim majority, you may be worried about Trump coming back, because at a point he put that ban on
some of these countries.
Muslim majority countries, which affect some of the African nations.
Okay.
So yes, we are interested because the U.S. still remains the world leader in spite of the relative decline of its hegemony.
Okay.
As at now, we have not have any other world leader that will replace it. Although we are suspecting that we are in a period of transition from a U.S.-led world order to maybe a different world order.
Okay.
But yet, the U.S. remains the undisputed
greatest
champion
country
of the world, as R. Kelly will tell you.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much, Doug. It's been an insightful conversation. I believe that we've been educated fairly enough. I've been engaging an international relations expert, Dr. Ishmael Hlovo, on the back of the U.S. election. The elections are still ongoing, and in the coming days or in the next few hours, the results may be declared, and that does it for the campaign trail on News Today. Start today, I beg your pardon.